Hi, so this is part 2 about what I was talking about around speaking at the same conference that President Joe Biden spoke at. It was really cool experience. And I was speaking on accessibility through, the title was Accessibility Through Intersectionality, a Complex Tapestry. So I'm going to break that down because a lot of people go, what's intersectionality? So I really focused on going back and forth between accessibility and disability because I think that's super important to know the difference. And I briefly went over that. What intersectionality is how different races, culture, women, LGBTQ plus, and age view disability or accessibility. And I really talked more about what people went through. And then I went through steps of what you can do. And that's what was very interesting. I mean, I wish I could tell better stories. I wish I didn't have to be so strong with what I had to say. But there are a lot of really horrific things that go on in the workplace or things that go on before people get into the workplace. And that's what I was doing. So I want to talk about how powerful the group was that I talked with. So I stopped in the middle of my talk and I said, how do you view intersectionality? I really want us to start a discussion before I continue talking. And a couple of people raised their hands. At first, I didn't think anyone was, and I was about ready to go on. And then people raised their hands and I want to tell you how I feel. How does it impact you? How does this impact you? How do you see this? And that was great. I am so thankful that people had the courage to raise their hands and tell me what they thought or write it down. And that's what I really wanted to do. I didn't want to play music and give people like, let's go write this down, and that kind of stuff. Because sometimes people play music as you're writing things down. I don't like that. It's too distracting for me. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted people to have the ability to write down or tell me what they felt. And then at the end, I asked people if they had any questions. This one woman had an amazing question. She says, and this is going to tie into the last video. She said, how do you work with people who don't get it and are saying things that are offensive? And I gave her 3 answers of how you would do that. 3 different ways, 3 different kinds of solutions. And this is someone who has a disability. This isn't someone who doesn't have a disability. And one of the things that needs to happen is part of this is clear, concise directions. So one of the things that did not happen before Joe Biden spoke, and it should have been obvious, but I don't know why it wasn't for people who are in President Joe Biden spoke, who are in HR positions. There is going to be ADA seating. When you walk in the building, if you see that, don't sit there unless you have a disability. If you have a disability, look for that place and sit there. It really needed to be announced. There needed to be better signage. It needs to be talked about more because when people don't have clarity, they just assume and go for what they want. I don't see seating anywhere else. I want to sit here. I have seen more people, and I've heard more people say, oh, there's no parking. I'm going to take the handicap parking spot, but I don't have a handicap sign in my handicap sticker or whatever packet. I can't even say what it is right now. I'm really tired. And I'm just going to take it. I don't have anything wrong with me, but I want that spot. You just took that from someone who needed it. And even if they didn't need it, and there's so many, that's not yours. You don't have the condition that is needed for that. On my way back home, it was very interesting to watch people with disabilities get on the plane and board. And what was very interesting was there was a person there with accessibility needs. And she had done something to make sure her situation was accessible. And people kept asking her this question. And you could tell she was getting tired of being asked. The airline did not set her up for success, and even the flight attendant asked her this question. And it was very uncomfortable for her. And she had to show proof of what she had done. I'm not going to go into the details. And instead of the airline really taking care of her and making sure that she wasn't embarrassed or having to take, more initiative in it, she had to explain it to everyone. That's not okay. She didn't have to fully explain, but she had to continually tell people, that's not okay. You can't have that. You can't have that. You can't have that. And I looked at her and I said to her, I'm sorry you had to go through that. That's not okay. You should have been more protected in this situation. And I'm sorry they didn't know how to work with you and protect you. She says, it was so embarrassing. I said, I know. I understand. And she started crying. It was tears of acknowledgement. She was being seen and heard of the trauma she was going through, the embarrassment she was going through. Nobody wants. Do you think I wanted to go sit in the ADA seating when I could have been wandering and had a closer view of seeing Biden, President Joe Biden? I would have loved to have a closer view. I would have loved to have, found my way around. But because of the stuff I struggle with, I took a seat that was farther back, that I knew I would be safer in, that I knew it would be better for me, stimulation-wise. Is that comfortable? No, it's not. It's not comfortable to say that you have this. And then when people want to come in there and say, we're going to take this because we're not paying attention, we don't know, or we don't care, or we think we should have it because we want it. It's very hurtful because many of us deal with this constantly. We deal with the shame. We deal with the embarrassment. We deal with the pain. And how come when someone says to me, I have to help these people understand what they're doing that's hurting other people, as people with disabilities, we're being told we have to change because we're being hurtful, but HR doesn't have to change. HR doesn't have to learn anything different. They get to keep their jobs. But yet they will do harmful things to us. These are things I'm talking about. And I'm not saying we should do tit for tat. What I'm saying is there needs to be more education out there for both parties. What I'm saying is we need to have clear, concise instructions for people with disabilities and clarity what they need to be able to be that successful employee. It may be a small, reasonable accommodation, and it's how the two of you work together. And for the HR person or the manager, training on how to work with that. That is so important, and that's what I'm saying. I hope this was helpful. I wanted to break this down more. And, if you'd like to talk to me more about this, you're always welcome to. So on that note, I'll see you next time. Bye for now.